Namaskar and welcome to this exciting episode of Sattology, debunking mythology. Sat means truth, Logos means a study of science, Sattology means science of truth, a study of truth. Opposite of that is mythology, which means science of fake lie imagination or study of fake lie imagination. Thank you for all the love and affection that you have shown to Sattology during the last 1 year. I must add this line to my daily shows because we are very grateful. Now, today we have a very, very important topic we are sharing. So I have my great friend, researcher Rishi Muni, and Rajarshi, also you can say it because he rules what he says. And so let us welcome Shri Nilesh Nilkant Oak.
Namaskar, Aditya and
Namaskar.
yes, very happy to be here.
So Nilesh ji, the concept of Pyrrhic war, a net loser in all scenarios. And nowadays, as Kali Yuga is progressing, most wars have no purpose other than very shallow meanings and a lot of suffering for people. What happened in many countries today, and including parts of India.
Mhm.
So, you know, if the society is on this path of Atma Sakshatkar or self realization, then can these wars be avoided?
Well, look at if we go into the ancient itihas of India, the two significant events, and we call them significant because they have come to us. There would have been many other significant events. Like as my co-researcher and also a host on your show, like Rupa Bhattiji says, I mean, our personal conversation. She says Rama had his Valmiki. That's how Ramayana comes to us. Mandhata was another great character in Ikshwaku dynasty, long time before Bhagwan Ram. And the descriptions of Mandhata are there in the Rigveda, descriptions of Mandhata are there in Ramayana, descriptions of Mandhata there in Mahabharata. So definitely is a very important character, like a sage Agasti. But in spite of that, and in spite of a lot of descriptions, we don't know much about Mandhata, the way we know about Ram or now Krishna, because Ram had his Valmiki, we can say, or Krishna or Pandavas had Vyasa. My point is, if you look at those two itihasa that we have, Rama and Mahabharata, they are in a way connected with the war. So that's why I'm connecting that with your question, like, can war be avoided? It should be avoided. I mean, that if you look at the diplomacy, we can use Rajakaran or, the strategy. Rama tried to avoid the war and Krishna also tried to avoid the war. They made their best efforts, but they couldn't avoid it in a way. They had to. Because if the other party wants to do it, you can do it. Now, back coming to the current situation or the current war that is going on, as you said, it is driven by certain specific interest. In this case, I would say the companies, the corporate entities, which makes war material of all kinds, when they see a lull in what's happening, a dullness in that, they will do. It's like they will spend the money, find ways to get the war going, get that fear mongering going, just like we saw with the COVID. So like different pharmaceutical companies, if their revenue starts going down, now they have to come up with something too. So that's not to say the COVID is not real. COVID is real, but the way it is managed. Similarly, the disagreements between the countries are real. I mean, if there are two countries for a reason.
That's right.
Right? Otherwise, it could have been a one country. Once upon a time, as a Soviet Socialist Republic, it was forcefully or whatever, it was put it together. But the basic law of thermodynamics tells us the entropy of the universe tends to increase, which means sometime the things has to split. So I don't know if I answered that, but are the wars avoidable? Well, I don't know if they're always avoidable, but one should always make a genuine effort to do that.
That's right. Now, another thing comes in. You brought in a very good point, and I think that will lead into today's discussion, Manobodh, is that nowadays don't have good advisors and of the leaders because the
Hmm.
leaders also need a Brahman to advise them. Brahman means a thinker,
Hmm.
and a leader to advise that whose ultimate objective is to maintain peace and also to maintain prosperity of
Yeah.
people because poverty brings all kinds of conflicts in every society from history. So therefore, poverty is induced by lack of dharmic work. Dharmic doesn't mean religion. Lack of means something which is for lok sangra, for maximum people. So do you think that that concept of Brahman, which is highly attacked by the Western bodies, is now is needed, badly needed now?
Right. It is always needed, badly needed now, but it's always needed. And see, the West attacked it because they didn't understand it. Okay, and they always went by a very extremely narrow attitude. Because see, they were trying to understand the Dharma civilization through their extremely reductionist idea of a religion. Okay,
Yeah.
the like, this is mine, and a very specific person who started it, and like a commandments and that sort of thing. So therefore they were already exploited. By the way, the whole Western religious system had exploited itself. Through that experience, they have finally now come in contact with the Dharma civilization. I mean, in some ways it is going on for a long time, but in the modern times, in the imperial times, what you call colonial times, is like the last 400 years, 400, 500 years, right? And so when they came, they are trying to find the parallels. So do you know what they do? In fact, therefore, we have to be very careful in using the words like priest and whatnot.
That's
The
right.
priest is not a Brahmin,
Right. That's
Even the
right.
priest is not even the archak in the mandir. Archak plays a different role. Archak
Different
has
role.
to be like a Brahmin,
Right.
like he may or may not be. And so the word Brahmin, for example, take Upanishad, it uses the same word. Even when Upanishad uses the same word, or Indian text use the same word, and we'll talk more about that when we get to the main subject of Samartha Ramdas Swami today, or Manobodh, his Manobodh. The word is used with the different shades of meaning. I'll give you one example. For example, I forgot now which Upanishad, but that doesn't matter. I think Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. So it says Tasmad Brahmana. So it's somewhere continuing the discussion. Therefore, I'm starting there. Tasmad Brahmana Balyena Tishtaset. Pandityam Nirvidya Balyena Tishtaset. So now he says, therefore, a knowledgeable person. So here, the translation of a Brahman is a jnani. That is the meaning of it. Knowledgeable, expert. Now the West came and said, "Oh, no, no, no! This is a experts are telling us what to do." In India, experts tell people what to do. What nonsense! So what else you are expecting if the experts are not going to tell what to do? Tasmad Brahmana Pandityam Nirvidya Balyena Tishta said. It says your knowledge. You have to tame your knowledge. In the West, there is no concept of taming your
Giving the
knowledge.
knowledge.
Yeah, Pandityam Nirvidya, you have to digest your Panditya. And Balyena Tishta said, live like a child, the innocence of a child, okay, or just the simplicity of it. Then it goes, Pandityam cha Balyam cha Nirvidya, Atha Muni. आप जो मुनि वगैरह, you call me Muni, Atha Muni, it has to do with the mind, the person who thinks before he speaks,
That's right.
and Maunam cha Amaunam cha Nirvidya, Atha Brahmana.
Hmm.
So now it goes through all this transformation. It says you have to do this, you have to do this, you have to do this, and then you are a Brahmana. Now it started with a Brahmana, Tasmad Brahmana, and now Atha Brahmana. Like then he is a Brahman, which means what? He is a knowledgeable person. Now he is truly a realized knowledgeable person.
That's right.
Acharya, the person who is also implementing in his life and through his example or her example teaching to others.
That's right.
Not just a pep talk.
Pep- no, the material, like pep talk on social media, like you and I have discussed many times, these videos are just an introduction.
Mhm.
But if you want to go through deeper, then you have to engage in swadhyaya
Yeah.
and take guidance from these videos to go there. Now, the next question comes in. I think you can start the presentation with that. Is the people, when they talk about Atma Sakshatkar, they and we all know that Atma Paramatma ya pashati sa pashati.
Mhm.
When you do see both of them as different, then you realize that both exist simultaneously in the body, which is
Yeah.
mentioned by most of the shastras, by
Yeah.
Bhagavad Puran or this place. So the it is not a great information. It is already
Mhm.
written.
Yeah.
You may not realize it, but it is already there. So the again the concept of swadhyaya comes in, and I think will lead to your talk also now on Manobodh. What do you have to say on that before we start?
Well, in Upanishad, we have this story of two birds sitting on a tree, right? One bird is enjoying the fruits, other bird is only observing.
That's right.
Okay. And of course, philosophically, or in a Darshana Shastra sense, or philosophically more, Tattvajnan, you will find these different layers. For example, Jiva, Atma, Paramatma. At one level, they might say they are all same. But why are we using different words? Because their states are different.
Correct.
Okay. Now, this is a state of the same individual. Like simple metaphor would be you as an individual. To your children, you are a father,
Mhm.
right? To your students, right? Sattologists so say students, you are like in a different role, right? When you are driving your motorbike, you are in a different mode, right? And people would see you as a different mode. So yes, I mean philosophically it can be different, and therefore to understand these intricacies and not to confuse and create a chaos, which if you look and see the social media, there are many who, and we'll talk about that today also, who will first thing, because of their lack of intellect, they will confuse.
Mm.
Sometimes they will do it deliberately. It's not necessarily lack of intellect, but they will do it because to deliberately confuse the people. And I think this is all good manthan, although people immediately worry and say, oh, it has a bad effect. I said no. In fact, it is forcing everyone to do their swadhyaya, because now they have to decide between which one is a gold and which one is iron, right? They have to do their own study. So with that, this is, I mean, for example, Ramdas Swami, that was his the clarity that he brings to a discourse is just amazing. Today we are going to look at a very small portion of his work, and even I would say a very small portion of his work from what he has written. The context I thought I would discuss this is the month of lunar month of Magha, and Magha Vadya Nomi, the second half of Magha in the Amanta system, is the birthday of Samartha Ramdas Swami. And so I thought that would be a good occasion to talk about it. And what these great realized individuals do, our acharyas, gurus, uh, is they distill the stuff, like the people, the chemical distilleries people know, like, or alcoholic distilleries, it is a distill, the essence is brought in, right? Something like this. They distill the stuff for you, and in very few words, they can say things. Now, some text has a different idea. They will elaborate. Okay, so akarana grantha and prakarana grantha. So they everything has a different purpose. For example, some people, as Aditya ji, they will comment to some of our programs, and they will say we take a long time, sometime, to discuss the subject, or to get to the point we took longer, and they are right. Okay, but this is they must understand. Of course, if they don't like it, then they can watch something else that they find more effective. But sometime a time is taken, or a subject is deliberately discussed in a roundabout fashion, is for a purpose. Because I also get a lot of feedback for many of my other talks, including here, is they said, oh, whatever you said, it just went above my head. Because many people come to it with a no background, no agama knowledge, no shabda knowledge, no knowledge of a smriti or shruti. They are going to find it challenging. If we are going to even discuss simple Newton's laws, and the person has no background whatsoever, the person doesn't know what mass is, what time is, what space is, speed of light, the person is going to be confused. Therefore, we take time. Again, as you said very well, that this is meant to be a movie trailer. This is the idea, is that to bring different subjects to people's attention. The idea is that those of them, the some of them who are truly curious, who are truly committed to learning, take to this on their own. The idea is not to just give a spoon feeding here. Spoon feeding is a wrong way to do it. So this is really to just make them aware of something. So Manobodh is one of the grantha, a very small grantha, in fact only 205 verses, Shlok, written by Samartha Ramdas Swami. And out of that 205 5 shloka. I'm going to take 5 shloka, only 5. So I'll just tell you this why, by definition, it is a movie trailer. But Samartha Ramdas Swami is just an amazing, wonderful individual. Many people would know the connection with the Raja Shivaji, Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj. He was his guru. Again, even that issue, people will talk about the Vada, Vivada, Samvada, Vada, Vivada, Vitanda. In India, I'm sure, but very much in a specific Maharashtra, uh, people have created utter nonsense. Okay, and just artificially claiming that there is no connection of Samartha Ramdas Swami with the Shivaji. All kinds of nonsensical stuff goes on, and I hope we get the comments here, and hopefully a sensible comments. But those people will refuse to study. So they want to do Vivada, they want to do Vitanda and foolishness. And we'll talk about that. By the way, Samartha Ramdas Swami did not mince words. Now, some things, before I get into this, Samvada, there are some change in the words. And this is another thing for our, what you call, monochromatic Sanskrit experts. They will take a word from, say, Mahabharata, and they will understand it the way it is understood today, or the way it is explained by, say, Patanjali. Sorry, not Patanjali, with, say, Panini. Now, Panini, what did Panini do? Panini, amazing book, right? I mean, amazing, his works on the Ashtadhyayi and all, the grammar, Vyakaran. Bhagwan Panini is after Mahabharata. So even he has used some of the terms in Mahabharata to explain the words. But what he did is he did the compilation of a Sanskrit grammar, and he talks about many grammarians before that. The point is the word takes a different meaning over time in the context. The simple example for all our viewers and Aditya ji is take Windows or files and folders. Now, before Microsoft used those words, or the computer industry PCs came into being, think of what the Windows meant, what the files meant, and what the folders meant. It meant something very, very physical. Okay, Windows, like our Windows of the house, files, folders, in the offices. Now they have a very different meaning when they used in the sense of online computers, PCs, and stuff like that. Same thing, just to give a quick understanding. Because I'm going to do a comparison of Manobodh 5 verses from there with a Nyaydarshan. The way Samartha Ramdas Swami uses the word Samvad that you see is how Nyaydarshan uses the word Vad. Okay, the way Samartha Ramdas Swami is using the word Vad is the way Nyaydarshan uses the word Jalpa. So Nyaydarshan, when he's saying Jalpa, he says it's an undesirable thing. It's a very foolish thing to do. It's not a desirable thing. So there is some change in the word. Samvada, Vada, Vivada is basically, we'll get to that. And Vitanda, both agree on the same thing, what they're saying, Vitanda. Quick background. So Samartha Ramdas Swami, I mean, he was a great Rama Bhakta, established many Hanuman Mandir in the places where he had influence, significant part of Maharashtra and even beyond. Rama Bhakti, just like Tulsidas ji did for, say, northern part of India, like Uttar Pradesh, you might say Haryana, many areas, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, that area, he had influence. Same thing Ramdas Swami did here. But for many, the connection is his connection as a one of the gurus, you can say, and one of the key personality. And there was such a great dynamic respect between this Guru Shishya, Raja Shivaji, Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj, and also Samartha Ramdas Swami. Unfortunately, with the breaking India forces, I mean, so many people are brainwashed into all kinds of things which has no evidence, or they are taught the wrong ways of understanding things, which is exactly opposite of a Nyaya. And we'll talk a little bit of this. And Samartha Ramdas Swami is talking about this Banda and Pashanda, artificial revolt, okay, which is really tamasic thing, and also Pashanda, which is to say, focusing on the things that you don't have evidence for, rather than focusing on the things for which you have the evidence. Okay, it is a very twisted mind, which it's a very tamasic buddhi, which sees everything 180-degree opposite. So we'll look through that. So this one, something that people are familiar with. So I'm going to start with this. Very, very important for people to understand. Just because they hear something, they read something by itself, per Nyaydarshan and our Shad Darshanas also, the emphasis is so much is on the pratyaksha that just because you hear, it's not true. Just because you read some board, in some place, like saying so and so was born here in this year. Now we have no reason to distrust it. You have to take that information. It's a shabda, it's a shruti, smruti, some background information that you did not know, you came to know. But you must understand, if you are intelligent enough, that this information can be valid or it may not be valid. And in the All Indian Darshan Shastra will emphasize that you have to find ways to validate it. And how do you do that? Through experience, through empirical, through anubhava, through pratyaksha. And then you can decide whether it is a true or false, the best of your ability. And even after that, always remain open for additional evidence to show up, additional scientific tools to show up, additional ways to do the experiments to show up, additional empirical evidence may come up, additional methods of testing that same evidence may come up, and we should be open to change our mind. Okay, that is Sanatano Nitya Nutana, always willing, always encouraging to remain fresh. That is the beauty of Sanatan Dharma civilization. So with that background, now this is from Nyaydarshana. Now Nyaydarshana talks about the 16 elements. And again, what I want to show you, Adityaji, here is that some of the words, how Samartha Ramdas Swami is using in a slightly different fashion. For example, Sangshay is a Sangshay. Okay. But there also, sometimes Ramdas Swami uses Sangshay of a mind and Sangshay of a buddhi. He uses both. Okay. And then if you come to Vada, see this one. So Vada is a good thing in Nyaydarshana. For that, Samartha Ramdas Swami uses the word Samvad, okay, because the discussion. But the Vada he uses for something different. In fact, Samartha Ramdas Swami uses Vada for this wrangling, okay. Therefore, he says Vada is not good. And then Vivada, so for Jalpa he uses Vada, and then Vitanda he uses Vitanda, and then Vivada, or Vevada, going back 400 years, the Marathi slight modification of that time. This fallacious wrangling, fighting for no purpose driven, just to prove other person is wrong. Jati, futilities, futile arguments, fallacious argument. Okay, quibble, deliberately twisting somebody's words, deliberately not taking all the knowledge from other person's argument, deliberately twisting that person's argument by partially stating the truth, is that chalo. We use the word chalo, right? Torturing kind of thing, quibble. So that is where he is using the word vada, vivada, vitanda, and so on. So there is a slight difference. So I wanted to just point it out. Okay, so now this is something that our folks are familiar with. So I'm using this. If you just simply use that pratyaksha that is so valued by the Indian tradition, the whole Darshana Shastra, which is again, Adityaji, when you ask the question about the West and the West trying to understand the East, the problem is for them, it is like something is written in their what they will call holy book. It must be taken as a truth. Now, that is absolutely, opposite, 180-degree opposite of what our Shastra says, Indian civilization, Dharma civilization says, what our Acharyas are saying. Keep that in mind. Many of our so-called modern gurus, just keep that in mind. And it has happened in the past also in a very dogmatic fashion, which Samartha calls it Pashanda or Pakhanda. Okay, where person gets so dogmatic that they, even in the Indian tradition, some people have taken that approach, that if it is said by somebody, if it is said in some grantha, it is to be taken as is. No, it's nowhere. It is, you start there. We value it. We respect that knowledge that somebody noted it down for us, and we are very grateful that somebody did it. That is this preservation of a tradition, and it can only happen because of Shraddha. So we have this Guru Parampara for that reason, Sampradaya Parampara for that reason. We call it tradition. So it is valued, but it is not to be taken blindly. Okay, and we will see that. It has its value for the masses. Okay, because everyone among the masses, everyone cannot achieve, or everyone may not be interested, or may not have a ability. We can see that in the social media, I mean, self-professed experts come and talk all kinds of nonsense. Why? They don't have the intellect, but they have a stamped degree, so now they can talk, and people think, oh yeah, this person has a degree from here, must be intelligent. I mean, we know that how stupid that thinking is. So preservation of a tradition is very valuable. It is driven by Shraddha, and we have seen those framework also. Now, in this context, we are going to see Samartha Ramdas Swami's Manobodh. Now, just to give an idea to people, Ramdas Swami wrote many grantha. One of the one is a Dasabodh. Okay, so that's like has a 20 dashak and so many things. That is his work, like, giving, he wrote it to as a give a upadesh to his students. He has written many others. I'll not go there, Atma Bodh and whatnot. But this, just like we talk about what is the difference between Shruti and Smruti, and that can be a subject by itself. Sometimes Smruti, just like we call a Dharma Smruti Grantha, they are relevant for a specific time, but they can change with time, just like our laws change or our rules change. But the Shruti, we say in the sense of this is applicable forever. It doesn't have to change. Something like basic Sattva, Raja, Tama, Mana, Buddhi, Sharir. The fact that we have to do seva, we have to always keep our mind in Sayam, and we should always search for the truth. These are like a Shruti. This is a Shruti Jnana. This is not going to change. Okay. This is like absolute moral standard. These are not relative moral standards. In the same fashion, the Manobodh that he wrote, and I think I had a picture, maybe here, just not that good picture. Yeah. Here in the Manache Shlok or Manobodh. So for some people, they may remember it as a Manache Shlok. Okay. This, what I'm calling is, if you want to think of a Shruti in our time, Shruti I'm talking, it is composed by Samartha Ramdas Swami. But just like Krishna went into a certain yoga yukta buddhi to deliver Bhagavad Gita to Arjun, that is what Krishna says in Ashwamedhika Parva. When Arjun asked Krishna to repeat the Bhagavad Gita, he says, well, I was in the zone that time. I can't repeat exactly the same thing, but I'll tell you something, alternate narration. And he does that, which is very similar. So my point is, just like Krishna did, if you want to think of something delivered as a Shruti, I mean, Bhagavad Gita, it's part of Mahabharata, but the truths of Bhagavad Gita are eternal. Okay. And in that sense, it is a Shruti Grantha, you can take it. Same thing I'm saying, that the Manobodh can be understood as a Shruti. Like, it doesn't matter who composed it. It is the essence of Samartha Ramdas Swami's thinking, but it is not necessarily his own thinking, in the sense of he is digesting for us, everything he has digested that was done in the past and giving us this. Out of that, I am only going to pull 5 verses. So Manobodh, he has got 205 verses, Shlok, and I'm going to pull only 5 of them. Aditya, just something else I want to give. Because many times we discuss, when we talk of Indian Grantha, most cases, not always, but most cases, we are referring to Grantha written in Sanskrit language. Okay. And in therefore that context, I thought I'll bring something from regional, and this just provided a context. So again, number of people who watch this multiple times, they're familiar with this. If you, in trying to understand the world, in trying to understand how to think properly, trying to look at any piece of information and to decide whether it's valid or not, whether it is a true or false, and in what context it is valid, what context it is not valid, for what it can be used and what it cannot be used. Therefore, we use a Nyaydarshan, understanding of Nyaydarshan, and modern science is a very small reductionist portion out of that Nyaydarshan, the Avayava 5 steps, which is triangulation of explanation, prediction, testing. And yeah, we will talk about triangulation also as soon as I finish this. The other one is the evidence, which is to say, now to decide whether something is valid or not, something is true or false, we need evidence. That's what Nyaydarshan says. Pramana taschartha pratipatte. Only through evidence you can establish things. And even it goes further, and it says pramana anupapatti upapattibhyam. The like something doesn't exist. Okay, the lack of something or the non-existence of something cannot be proved without evidence. right? I mean, how can you do that? So you need evidence for everything. If you don't have evidence, then it becomes a metaphysical, atarkya. We cannot talk about it. That is the left side of this. Now, in this context, again, you have seen this, our viewers have also seen this. The first top left-hand quadrant is the preservation of tradition. The bottom quadrant, left-hand quadrant, is the tamasic, lazy quadrant. Person only doubts everything, doesn't do anything on his own, extremely lazy. Okay, just will participate for the sake of it. Okay, will talk whatever comes to their mind, just focused on how something is not possible. That's a no person. Like Ramayana. Well, you don't have Pushpak Viman. How can I trust Ramayana? How can Ramayana be real? That's the kind of stupidity that goes into that quadrant. Vastu Shunya. The person doesn't emphasize finding the evidence, but will talk about the evidence that doesn't exist. That is that Nyaydarshana that I told you. They confuse the absence of evidence with evidence of absence. Okay, that is that quadrant. Mithya Jnana is they have some idea how to use Pratyaksha, but otherwise confused on everything. Confused on a Vijnana Buddhi, scientific acumen, confused on a logical reasoning, Tarka Shastra, and extremely incompetent in Tantra Yukti. They don't know how to set up experiments. So usually they borrow from somebody and try to get some limelight. Okay, that's what usually you will find the group there. Now, what Samartha Ramdas Swamiji is doing, again, out of his all works, I'm simply taking Manobodh or Manache Shlok. There are only 205 shloks there. Only I'm saying it's relatively small compared to his other works, Dasabodh and whatnot. And out of those 205, I'm taking 5 verses, which, of course, throughout the whole Manache Shlok and Ramdasa's work, he's talking, by the way, Aditya ji, he's talking Sankhya. Everywhere you are going to see Sankhya, Nyaya, and of course, the Uttara Mimamsa. Everything comes there into all the works of Ramdas Swami. But we are taking those 5 verses very, by the way, they have much more than the Nyaydarshana, but I'm going to connect them with the Nyaydarshana and specifically the scientific method and specifically this classification that many of my viewers are well familiar with. So now what he's saying is, forget the Vada. Now, when he says Vada, he means Jalpa, meaning just wrangling. Okay, don't do it. Vevada, futile arguments, fallacious argument. Guys, don't waste your time. Hitva bhasa, those are the words. Okay, chalo jati. No, don't do that. So what he's saying is the reason people are in this bracket, again, they can be found in an Indic social media, Indic space, but of course, non-Indic space also. They are here, and he's saying if they don't want to change themselves, they are happy where they are, just like a pig is enjoying in the mud. That's perfectly fine. Nobody can do anything to them. You mentioned 13th chapter, maybe not this just before we began. The 13th chapter, and then again you have what is jnana, that 13th chapter discusses, and then you go to what is that 16, and then there you have a Daivi Prakriti and Daivi Pravrutti and Asuri Pravrutti. If somebody wants to be an Asuri Pravrutti, you cannot do. But if some people ask, okay, so if somebody is in that quadrant, okay, the people with a karuna, compassion say, hey, is there any tool, any method that I can take a person who is stuck here, just only in a doubt, doesn't understand why one should talk only about the things where the evidence exists? Is there anything we can do to get this person out of that muddy place? Okay. And this is where the first of the 5 shlok that I'm going to discuss of Samartha Ramdas Swami comes. I'm going to sing it. It's so beautiful, by the way. Those people who can read Nagri, they can read this, okay, because both Sanskrit and Hindi and Marathi, not both. So Hindi and Marathi, 3 languages. For most part, they use don't say most part. They use the Nagri script. So it is easy to read, although sometimes people may not understand. In fact, Aditya ji, the other comments we get, and I get it everywhere, like Hindi mein bolo, give a lecture in Hindi. And that is understandable. If they don't know other language, they have no other way but to insist that people talk in Hindi. But I would also suggest that, why just they say Hindi? I mean, people should also say, why not talk in Sanskrit? Why not talk in Marathi? right? My logic is I cannot talk in Sanskrit, so I don't talk in Sanskrit. My Hindi is not that good, so I don't talk that often in Hindi, although sometimes I do. I do my best. But just like I do my best, it is their responsibility, those people who usually give the comments Hindi mein bolo, to learn Marathi, learn Sanskrit, and actually learn English also. English right now for practical purposes, it's a world language. So they have to learn it too. This verse is saying, so I'll just sing it in a way. Mana sarvada sajjana cheni yoge क्रिया पालटे भक्ति भावार्थ लागे क्रिये वीण वाचाळता ते निवारी तुटे वाद संवाद तो ही तकारी. So what they're saying is the person who is stuck into that bottom left hand corner, okay, if he wants to, she wants to make progress and get out of that really, really unfortunate place, what that person needs to do is get into a company of people who are good, who are intelligent, okay, who acharyas, get into a right company, a virtuous company. Okay, what will that do? Their actions will change and they will get to bhakti bhavartha lage, which is what? Shraddha. The folks in the bottom left hand corner lack shraddha in anything. And that's why, Adityaji, you will also notice if you try to engage them, as soon as you catch them and show how they are wrong, they will just digress. They will change the goalpost. They will go to something else. So what will you say about this then? Even I'm talking of ordinary people who may not be that bad. But suppose if I give a lecture and show astronomy evidence and then show, just let me give you an example, astronomy evidence of Mahabharata or Ramayana. They will say, but what about archaeology? It's what about archaeology? So then I will discuss all the Dwarka evidence of flooding and destruction. Then they will say, what about archaeology? But that is oceanography. Many of them are of such a low intellect, or they have no training whatsoever, or very lazy, that they don't realize that the entire Dwarka flooding and destruction evidence that I discussed is archaeology evidence. Okay, that is how people have lost sometime. So for them, me quickly telling them scientific method may not be useful. They have to start with a shraddha. I mean, why are you trying to even understand or engage here? Do you want to know the truth of Mahabharata or Ramayana or whatever the subject we may be discussing, Ayurveda, okay, or yoga, whatever it is? Then it says, Kriya vina vachalata te nivari. The problem in this bottom left-hand corner is they themselves don't do a damn thing. They will just ask some random questions for the entertainment purpose and do nothing. Ramdas Swami is saying, Kriya vina vachalata te nivari. If you don't do action, then just talking is useless. Okay. And if you get into the company of a virtuous people who actually are doers, who have a certain moral compass, why they are doing it, then you will develop a shraddha, you will develop a bhakti. And when that happens, what will happen? The outcome will be tute vada. Now, in this case, vada means the jalpa, okay, the wranglings and all. That kind of just fighting for the sake of it, without any logic, without any reason, without even scientific acumen, that will go away, and you will able to develop the skills for a samvad, which is the vada of a Nyaydarshan. Okay, a good discussion, a useful discussion, meaningful discussion, which solves problems, which leads to solutions, which leads to satyam. That is the first one. The next one, now, if you get into this Shraddha mode, preservation of tradition. Now, remember, Adityaji, Bhagavad Gita, you can quote that words, but Nabuddhi Bedam Janaya Dadnyanam Karma Sangina. Right? So Krishna is telling Arjun, those people who are already engaged in a certain work, don't just disturb them with a philosophy. If they are doing a right kind of work, maybe not with a knowledge, don't disturb them right away. Through their work, they are going to learn philosophy. Okay. So now somebody has a shraddha, and somebody says, in fact, many people, what they do, and even you do that, I know, which is to say, if somebody asks like, okay, but Adityaji, what is your position? You invite different individuals who work on the dating of Mahabharata, Ramayana and whatnot, Buddha and whatnot. What is your position? And you say, hey, I don't focus on chronology. I focus on some other aspects of it. I don't focus on chronology. If you want to know about chronology, read Nilesh, watch his talks, or read others, watch other people's talks, and use your own intellect, do something about it, and make up your own mind. The point here is somebody who is in the Shraddha, and somebody may say, you know what, I have no interest. in the dating business. Now, we cannot be just going there and forcing and saying, oh, no, 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 you should take interest. No, it is that person's intelligence, that person's understanding, that person's choice. That is what the beauty is, the freedom of thought, one of the foundations of Sanatan civilization. So if the person is into that Shraddha mode, what that person should do. Now, it is very important that the person who only says, I'm going to stick with the Shraddha, I don't want to go beyond and do anything, that is not my area of research, I don't do anything, I don't get into that vada or a discussion, that person should definitely follow this. Such a beautiful advice. Jani vada vevada soduni dava, Jani sukha samvad sukhe karava, Jagi tochito shoka santapahari, Tute vad samvad tohitakari. So when we are talking to masses, okay, one-on-one, like you and me can argue, and we have a time to say, well, hold on, you might say, Nilesh, actually you quoted a wrong verse there, and we can go back and forth. Again, we have to be on the same plane, that we are not doing this to do one-upmanship. We are trying to do this to understand the truth. That's why we are doing it. But as soon as the number of people into any discussion, that number goes up, remember, it is everyone comes from a different background. Their sattva rajatama combination also changes, and it becomes a very chaotic. Therefore, Ramdas Swami is giving us such a wonderful advice. He says, Jani vada vevada sodun deva. Among the masses, just forget it. Don't get into wrangling, don't get into these futile arguments, fallacious arguments, even the good arguments, because your good correct argument would not be understood by other side or many other individuals, and they are now confused. That's what Jagi to. So Jani sukha samvada sukhe karava. Find the common minimum program. That's why, like, you have what japa session. Absolutely. I mean, what do you call? Naiko moniriasya vacha pramanam. Say, you cannot find, if you want to find who I can listen to, who I can trust, you go to one very learned individual, even learned and moral on all fronts. He or she may give you some advice. Then you go to another one. That person may give a different advice. And if you don't have your own intellect, then now you're going to be confused, because you have no ability to decide between the two. Like people if you go to 3 different doctors, they may do a 3 different types of diagnosis. And not to say that they're necessarily wrong. There may be an element of truth in each one of them. But an intelligent person will go through 3 doctors, get their diagnosis, and build his or her own diagnosis as to what might have happened to him. But a person who doesn't have that intellect, doesn't have that expertise, is now going to be confused going to 3 doctors. In that case, he might have been better just going to one doctor. This is what we talk about, the Guru Shishya Parampara, or sometimes a Sampradaya. Sampradaya also can come with its limitations. Guru Shishya can also come with a limitation, because Guru can only tell to Shishya what Guru knows. But the benefit of that is the Shishya is not going to be confused. And therefore, she may follow one particular thing and benefit from it. Just like somebody wants to play all the games, he or she will be not good at anything. So it's better to follow one particular game and become good at it. That is the idea behind it. Here is saying, well, just have a pleasant conversation. Find the minimum common program. Sometimes nothing else, just even the mauna. Just do the yoga together, on the yoga, sitting on the yoga posture, even, close eyes and just do that. Or just do the chanting together. Just do the arati together. Okay, it's a minimum common program. People can take inspiration from it and then do their own things. But for the masses, Shraddha becomes a foundation, beautiful foundation. And it says that just do a sukha samvad, pleasant discussion. Jagi tochito shoka santapahari. So there is no angry feelings, hurt feelings, and so on and so forth. Now, is this advice for everyone? No, it is a contextual advice. Now, what happens is, what about these people who understand the importance of pratyaksha? Sometimes they show that they understand importance of pratyaksha, but otherwise, as far as the Vijnana Buddhi is concerned, Tantra Yukti is concerned, okay, the technical skills are concerned, technical depending on the subject matter knowledge, or logical reasoning skills, Nyaya skill, Tarka Shastra, they are extremely weak, and you can see that. For example, see the beauty here. Huh? That particular quadrant, and I can again go to my favorite subject, Mahabharata, but it can be any subject, like a diagnosis of an individual for a certain disease to an individual, Mahabharata dating, Ramayana dating, Sushruta dating, you can Surya Siddhanta dating, you can go anywhere. What happens? Here people will claim that they are using the same evidence, but they get different answer. What is the problem here? Very beautifully explained by Ramdas Swami. He says, as somebody who has partial understanding of how to use pratyaksha, but lacks the vijnana buddhi, lacks the scientific acumen, lacks the logical reasoning skills, lacks the background knowledge, what does that person need to do? Tute vada samvada tyate manave. That's why there is a vad into that bottom quadrant. Many people claim they're using the same information but draw different answers. Now, usually we say different answers should not come, but that's what happens. Why? Tute vada samvada tyate manave. Viveke aham bhava yate janave. Ahanta gune vada nana vikari. Tute vada samvada to hitakari. In this case, Ramdas Swami is saying that you can turn that vada to samvad. And how do you do that? We have to use a viveka, and I'll talk about viveka in a minute. Okay, so using the viveka, we have to get rid of the aham bhav. Aham bhav is a ego, and we'll talk about this in a minute. Now, what is a vivek? Vivek is a sanyam, being very neutral. Okay, now opposite of neutral is what? Very biased, being very biased. That is that aham bhav. And where does it come from? I may have a slide further, but if I don't have it, Nyaydarshan says beautifully, Tat trairashyam raga dvesha moha arthantara bhavat. It says the reason for this mithya somebody reaching the wrong conclusion, is threefold. Raga, attachment to a specific outcome, attachment to a specific individual, attachment to your own ego, attachment to your own popularity, desire, whatever. That is a raga. Okay, it's a bhavana. Raga dvesha. The another one is one may be trying to show that the answer is something else from another answer X, because this person hates that answer, hates that individual who found the answer. That is a dvesha. Raga dvesha moha arthantara bhavat. Moha is, or mudha, both words are used, which means stupidity or lack of intellect. Murkhata. Okay. And Samartha Ramdas Swami uses murkha. And as I said, he doesn't mince words. In fact, he distinguishes between, and there are many other murkha he discusses, but murkha, and he also discusses padata murkha. Okay. Murkha is a foolishness, like a lack of intellect and all, therefore the acts. And padata murkha is a learned fool. Okay, the person may be knowledgeable in a generic sense, may know the information, okay, may have degrees, I mean, all of that, even the so-called social standing, but basically he's a learned fool. Okay, he uses the word padatamurkha, and he gives a beautiful definition, not a subject today. Viveke aham bhava yate janave. So viveka meaning by being a neutral person, by approaching the subject in a neutral fashion, and therefore our tradition demands that you do purva paksha. Before you do Uttara Paksha, you do Purva Paksha, which is what? Present somebody's claim, somebody's theory, somebody's position, somebody's Siddhanta in such a fashion first, even better than how that person might present. Even that person should come and say, oh, you explain my position beautifully, even frankly, better than I could explain. Then if you think you have a position, and you better have a position which is better, superior to that, now you can go into Uttar Paksha. That's what it is saying, Viveke. So you have to have a neutral position. Only through neutral Sanyami mind, you can truly understand other person's position first, present it through that person's point of view by being in his or her shoes, and then give the rebuttal. Okay, that is the idea. Just look into social space. People don't even understand what the hell Purva Paksha is. Okay. Antagune vadandana vikari. Now, if you cannot get rid of your attachment to specific things or a detestation for a specific individual or specific claim, and if you don't have the required intellect, what is the problem? You will always antagune vadandana vikari. These kinds of things will just perpetually go on in your space. Okay. But on the other hand, if you get the vivek, you can go to te vada, samvada, to hitakari. What you should go desire is a samvad and not vad. Okay, so yeah, here I had this. Tat trairasham ragadvesha moho arthantara bhavat. And pravartana lakshana dosha. That's why when we see this bottom left position, Adityaji, this person is like, one should simply avoid it. If that person doesn't have his or her own alternate claim, you should avoid it, because that person is a tamasic person, that person is a lazy person, that position is a lazy person. And what happens? See, that person is not doing any action in terms of solving a problem. And Nyaydarshan says you can only start understanding somebody's faults, somebody's stupidity, somebody's solution, how that solution is not a good solution, not a perfect solution, in fact, far from perfect solution, only when the person proposes the solution. Only when the person does some action, tries to solve the problem, pravartana lakshana dosha, only through somebody's actions you see that person's fault. If somebody takes, oh, I don't have any position on it. Okay, it's like something, oh, what do you think of this? Like you asked me the war, should the war continue or not? He says, no, I don't have a position. Then you don't know whether that person's thinking has any faults or not, because the person has not taken any position. Let's move on. So we went through the three. And so the first one, Ramdas Swami said how you can move the person from tamasic and his or her journey begin by through Shraddha, through bhakti. Okay, that we saw. Person who is into Shraddha mode and chooses not to go anywhere, he says, not a problem. Just have a pleasant conversation though. But don't just remain in a Shraddha and try to argue with someone. That is a no. Okay, that was just said. Then we saw the people who are into this mithya jnana bucket, superficial and manipulative claims. If they ever feel like, hey, they are wrong and they need to improve, how they do it? They have to get rid of their aham bhav, which is raga, dvesha, and moha. They have to improve on their intellect. They have to give the attachments, and they have to stop detesting others. Okay. Then through neutral mind, sanyam, viveka, they can get to the next stage. Now, if somebody is lucky and gets into this top right hand quadrant in this context, the pradnya quadrant or the quadrant of a satya, okay, or the best approximation to satya, because satya also comes to us not directly, it comes in iterative fashion, satyansha. We, to the extent we are ready for it, to the extent we are willing to put the efforts, we get a what is the right word, you get a flavor of a satya. You don't, the whole satya never comes to us because we are not ready for it. Just like the Vishwarup darshan, where the all the space is also crunch and time is also crunch. Arjuna was not ready for it. So it comes as an ansha in an iterative fashion. So this last one, if you are lucky and you are there, now what is your duty? Okay, that is what Ramdas Swami is saying. Now again, you see what he's saying. Hita karane, hita is for the well-being, okay, for a virtuous life, or for the well-being of society, well-being of yourself. Hita karane bolane satya hai, hita karane sarva shodhu nipahe. Now, the first one is you can think of this as a khandan mandan. You can think of this as sowing the seeds. He says, for the well-being, it is your duty and you should do it. And the person in this bucket does it. Bolane satya hai, speaks the truth. It may be bitter to someone, but you must speak the truth. Okay. Or best approximation to the truth, because you don't know, ultimately you don't know. Best approximation to the truth. That's what our gurus do. And therefore, the true gurus, great acharyas, are willing to change. Sanatano Nitya Nutana, they are willing to change what belief or something they might have held based on their guru's knowledge or so on. When a new evidence comes to light, which asks us to change our assumptions, presumptions, and so on. Hita karane bolane satya hai, hita karane sarva shodhu nipahe, hita karane banda pakhanda vari, tute vada samvada to hitakari. So you must speak the truth. And you should search anything that, there is no point asking someone. And this guy, the person in this top bucket doesn't do that. He's exactly opposite of this tamasic, lazy person here. If the person is curious about something, he or she goes on their own search. Hita karane sarva shodhu nipahe. And now the removing the weeds. This person also needs to do it, no matter how unpleasant, no matter what people are going to say. Because many times, say, suppose I fight, I take on those people who are into these bottom two quadrants, the lazy tamasic guys or superficial and manipulative individuals. They claim that they have done something and actually it's a disaster. Okay. When I take on them, the people say, yeah, this guy is fighting. No, it is a duty of a person who has, by luck, or by mercy, by Shraddha, by Pradnya, by efforts, Shraddha, Virya, Smriti, Samadhi, the person has by luck has reached this quadrant, has a duty. Hita karane banda pakhandavari. The banda is here, the rebellious nature, the lazy and just rebellious. Unless you show Pushpak Viman, I don't understand Ramayana. Well, get lost. It's your problem. I'm not interested in convincing you otherwise. That, but in the society, somebody says, oh, but that so-called famous person is saying this. Now because society is on the wrong track, you have to explain to them why that is nonsensical. Hita karane banda and pakhanda is here. These people are, they get attracted. It's very amazing. And you can see this. Now, so many people are willing to expose themselves, which is a great thing. Many of these people, they will only go after arbitrary or selective evidence. Okay. To do what? To either try to prove what they believe is true, raga, or to try to prove somebody else for whom they have an extreme detestation, dvesha. And why do they do that? Even Nyaydarshan says, even the basis, the foundation for the raga and dvesha is also mudhata, the lack of intellect. The stupidity is the reason from which the raga and dvesha comes. Because if you change that stupidity to a jnana, then you naturally achieve a sayam. Okay, that viveka you achieve. So very, very interesting. So you one of your duty, so it's important to understand, yes, you do the search for the truth, you search it, but part of your duty is also to expose the fraud. Okay, the tamasic skeptic fraud, but also the fraud done by superficial and manipulative researchers or individuals. The last one, and we will stop. Now what happens is, this is also a wisdom, guys. I mean, this is now very important to understand. So now suppose you have solved one problem. Again, I will take my hour dating, but it can be again COVID, or any other situation. So you found a solution, you found some medicine now that solves the problem. Are we done? I mean, are the all diseases gone? No, there will always be more diseases. Maybe sometime the medicine that you gave can have a side effect, and now you need to fix that. Or as it happens in a revolutionary researches, okay, when you solve one problem which could not be solved by anyone else, okay, when you solve such a problem, actually the beauty of this knowledge, it's called the Bhagavad Puran talks about it, so it's like says jnanam vishuddham vipulam yathaitat. When you start getting vishuddha knowledge, very pure knowledge, sat knowledge, vipulam, it opens many doors. So now you have to study more. Okay, same thing happens in when you come up with a revolutionary theory, revolutionary solution, when you solve a very difficult problem. Yes, it solves that problem, but now it leads to newer problems of higher complexity, and this is not a bad thing. However, those people who don't understand that, those people who look at the problems or the challenges in a negative way, they may be confused. They may say, well, I thought if once I do this, everything is over. Well, not so. Think of a corporate life. Like, you get promoted and you are looking very desirously looking for that promotion for a long time. Once you get promoted, that time you're thinking, my God, if I just get that promotion, if I get that job, oh, I'll be happy forever. Well, all of the people listening to it and those who would listen have that experience. Yes, they got the promotion, and then they realize it wasn't necessarily a happy situation. It can be a miserable situation, but it depends on how you take it. If you take it that, oh, I have got now interesting challenges and let me get more excited and face it, then it's a beautiful thing. But if you don't understand that, as you get promoted, your challenges get higher and complex, right? Same thing when you make revolutionary discoveries, revolutionary theories, when you solve tough problems and come up with a revolutionary solution, you do create newer problems of higher complexity. Therefore, Ramdas Swami is giving us that wisdom. So if you are not made for this, don't play this game. Just stay in a Shraddha and do the right thing there. But if you are made for this game, it's very important to understand. So you kind of remain viveka, neutral, not get possessed by this. Jani Sangata Aikata Janma Gela. Now, if somebody of those people who love it, like myself, I love solving problems. Okay, I get excited about it. But it's not for everyone, and nothing wrong with it. Only person who is not capable of solving problems shouldn't pretend that he is a problem solver. Then the whole nonsense starts. Jani Sangata Aikata Janma Gela. Parivada Vevada Taisa Chitela. because you solve one problem, and if you're thinking therefore now everything is done and finished and it's over, no, it's never over. There will be a newer problems of higher complexity. It is your choice whether you want to spend time solving them or not. Maybe others will solve, maybe you don't want to solve. Okay, when that is not understood by people, that's when people start asking, but where is the archaeology evidence, where is this evidence, where is this, where is now the fuselage of a pushpak viman? Well, go find it, man, don't be lazy. Okay, the very fact you cannot find a pushpak viman has no bearing on the historicity of a Ramayana. Okay, the very fact you don't understand how Vyasadeva could take Gandhari's Garbha, split them into 100 parts and create 100 Kaurava brothers. You don't understand, even I don't understand. But my lack of understanding or that other person's lack of understanding has no implications for the authenticity or itihasa nature of Mahabharata. So therefore, this will always continue. It's endless. Therefore, he's saying, Jani Sangata Ekata Janmagela, you are telling people, you are listening to people, you did this. Parivada Vevadita Isachitela. Like Aditya, just last point, and I'm stopping here. Like some people of a low intellect are, will just come there and write some blogs, give lectures, and just say, oh, I have rebutted Nilesh's claim. Okay, that is happening in social media. You can watch that. And then so they do what they should do with their intellect, and I'm very happy, because what they are doing is they are creating an educational material in a social space, and I am using that information when I do the individual private courses. I'm using it, and I plan to use that information for years as an educational material. Okay, wonderful. I'm thankful to them, and I encourage them that they should produce more. That is not the issue. The issue is now some of the people who do not have those skills, they will say, oh, so now Nileshji, what is your rebuttal to that person? I said, I don't need to give a rebuttal. My rebuttal, if that can be called a rebuttal, because there is no need for a rebuttal, is I wrote, say, Mahabharata, I wrote 2011. Ramayana, I wrote 2014. Bhishma Nirvan, I wrote 2018. It's there. Because they couldn't understand it, they are creating a chaos out of it. This is not to say that sometime genuine people, capable people can do a proper critique. And I have been tremendously benefited by some individuals. I can mention Dr. P.V. Vartak. I can mention Prabhakar. I used to call him Appa, and his family calls him Appa. Prabhakar Fadnavis or Fadnis. There are many individuals one-on-one. Some of the individuals, Adityaji, I don't know their names, because in social media they use the handles. On Bharat Rakshak Forum, those of you who may know it, there was one individual with a proxy handle called Arjun. And when I proposed, meaning when I brought out my work on the Mahabharata dating 55-61 BC in 2011, he took so much interest. I mean, of course, he was fascinated by my work, but he said, what about this? What about this? And it was he was objecting to what I was doing, and it was such a useful information that some of the questions that he asked, which I had not answered properly in that book, I answered them in the Bhishma Nirvana. So it can be very useful. So that's not to say Sanatana Nitya Nutana. We should be willing to change if somebody brings that. But most people are basically just there to create this wrangling and whatnot. Uthe samshayo vadaha damvadhari. Without doing Purva Paksha, if all you are doing, I ask these people who in between comments says, Nileshji, what is your rebuttal, or what are you going to do? I said, have you read my books? The answer is, I will tell you without exception, the answer is always no. The person who comes to me and says, okay, how are you going to respond to XYZ? And I say, have you read my book? The answer is always no, without exception. Because if I say, go read my book, you will get your answers. You don't have to come and ask me. Now, even after reading my book, if you haven't understood, you may come to me, but I need to see the evidence that you have put your efforts. Okay, you are just not lazy. You have done your job. Uddared Atmanam Anam Natmanam Avasadayet. Okay, and so if you have a doubt, you have to do something about it. Otherwise, it's a damba, it's a aham, right? It will not do anything. So the idea is, yes, select a quadrant of your choice, preferably the top two quadrants. The bottom one is to be avoided. How to get out of that bottom quagmire, if you choose to, and if you are lucky that even that thought comes to your mind, Samartha Ramdas Swami is giving you the ways to do it. Samartha Randaswamy also tells you how to stay in this quadrant and have a happy life. It's also telling you how to stay in this quadrant and how to have a happy life, but also the potential dangers. If you don't understand the problem solving in the right spirit, then your life can be miserable. Okay. If you are looking for some social validation, don't expect it. It will not happen. Jani sangata aikata janma gela parivada vevada taisachi thela. Because people are mostly samshayi. They have doubts. Why? Because they don't do swadhyay. Okay, so with that, Aditya, I'm going to stop here. All I would have done is like shown you, for example, I'll skip those ones. Books, again, I want to show these books because people still ask me, where are these books? Guys, Amazon. I mean, how many of you don't know Amazon now? Go to Amazon, and if you're going to ask me the question where you can find the book, don't come to me. Just type the name Nilesh Oak in Amazon, you're going to find them. If you are in India, of course, in Amazon, you can still do that, or Subbu Publications. Don't, again, send me an email saying, how do I contact Subbu Publications? Well, subbupublications.com or the phone number here. You can always pause a YouTube presentation, guys, and note down the phone number. Okay. I hope you can do that. Otherwise, if you cannot do these basic things, you're not qualified to even read my books. So don't bother writing to me. Okay. I'm just saying this because it really wastes people's time. Okay. I mean, we have to up our game. We have to get out of our tamas. We have to get out of our laziness. Okay. And for example, somebody reading my book, if you have a feeling that you are doing a favor to me, I would say, please don't read. Okay. You are wasting your time. You're wasting my time. You are starting from a very wrong foundation. So don't do it. Okay. You are doing a favor to yourself. I'm not even asking that you buy the book. You can go to library. Many of the Indian books in all the university libraries are slowly getting filled with my books. Okay, only three books, and more will come. But no, don't think you are doing a favor. Just like a dana. Okay, I'll stop sharing so that Aditya, you can see my face and all. Just like a dana, Shankaracharya, dana also, people give a dana. Now, dana is not what is the English word, Aditya? Donation, right?
Donation.
Donation or charity. Now that is not the word.
Yes,
That is not the right translation of a dana.
exactly.
In fact, Shankaracharya gives us such a beautiful definition. He says, suppose now I became capable and I'm willing to give, I'm in a position to do dana, like share my wealth, let's say wealth of any kind, knowledge or money or whatever it is. How did I get it? I am not giving from my thing. I got it from society. I got it from the others. Okay. So he says, Yatha Shakti Samvibhaga iti jnana. Okay. To the best of your ability, your effort to make a equitable distribution in the world is dana. So it's not like you are doing a charity to someone. Same thing with these books and same thing with the study. Sorry, I don't know if I went over time, but back to you.
No, one of the beautiful things you did, and I think you touched upon the topic of triangulation, like deriving or solidifying our information. Like most of the acharyas who have commented on Bhagavad Puran, they use references from Niti Shastra, like you have done. And that's how they solidify the point. So triangulation is the art of bringing more validation to your own argument.
Yes.
So it's not that you have to just read Gita and Gita is enough. You have to also take information, background information from Bhagavad Puran just for your own purposes, not for others. And also from Mahabharata, also from Ramayana. And that's how you arrive at a complete picture for yourself. And again, somebody was telling me it's a matter of experience. Well, obviously, yoga is all about experience. Yoga is all about experience. And by doing Swadhyaya, you are also indulging in Jnana Yoga. Jnana and Tapasya is very much needed. So, Nileshji, one last point I would like you to answer is because your analysis is perfect because you bring multiple points of reference. And today, Ramdas Samarth, we had a wonderful discussion on what a beautiful lines he has. So, when people say there is no more gurus left, what are they saying actually?
Okay. Well, I don't know what they're saying, but we can try to understand what it is. Well, gurus are everywhere. Okay. Now, people get into a rote thinking of a guru. Like, see, of course, I mean, you are familiar with that, but for the benefit of the audience, there is a Diksha Guru, there is a Shiksha Guru. Again, the idea behind that is that Ramdas Swami mentioned in the second one, which is to say, if you don't know how to develop Shraddha, see, the journey begins with a Shraddha. Shraddha, Virya, Smriti, Samadhi, Prajna, Purvakam. So if somebody doesn't know how to build Shraddha, it is very difficult to trust everyone. I mean, why? You may trust, but it becomes confusing. Okay. Therefore, we hear Naiko Muniryasya Vacha Pramanam. You go to three different people, they might give you three different pieces of advice. All could be correct, but it is going to confuse you. Therefore, you need a Diksha Guru, you may say. You also need a Shiksha Guru. That person can be one and the same. But then you go to Avadhut Gita, again, Bhagavad Puran and even other places, right? In Eknath Maharaj, in his 11th Skanda commentary, he says, Jojo Jayacha Getalami Guna Tyasi Guru Kela Jana Guru Siale Aparapana. Every person that I meet, actually, every person can be your Guru. So just like we say Jagat Guru, okay, Jagat Guru is a Shashti Tatpurush. Okay. The guru of the world. Yes. But now this is a finesse. Now the people who have a very dogmatic understanding of Sanskrit, they will go on another tangent, but that doesn't matter. I want them to go on another tangent. Just like Jagat Guru is a Shashti Tatpurush, like I'm talking the grammar piece, but it can be taken as a Bahuvrihi, the person who considers the world as his Guru. That's right. Okay, Jagat Guru, the person who considers the world as his Guru, which goes to that Avadhut Gita. Jojo Jayacha Getalami Guna Tyasi Guru Kela Jana Guru Se Ale Aparapana. Every person that you meet, you find some aspect for which you can make that person as your Guru. So to answer your question, those people who think there are no Gurus, there are Gurus everywhere. Go to the 7th chapter of Bhagavad Gita and go to the 10th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. All the Vibhutis, Sthawaranam Himalaya. How to become a stable? Look at the Himalayas. Right? So it's there.
And just in this context, don't misquote anyone, don't misquote me. I'll say, Sa ya pashati, sa pashati. So, people who can understand, they can understand. One who sees this, the more important thing is, if you are searching for a guru, then you must also check within yourself, are you a sincere learner? That is
correct. Right. And I'll quickly add something. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you. Just you said that right point. It says like, are you sincere? Ask the question. Because, again, the experienced people will tell you that you have to increase or fix, whatever you want to call it, build your qualification for a guru. Guru will come. You don't have to actually go look for a guru.
That's right.
Yes. Okay. And some person says, but I'm waiting here for 10 years and nobody came. Well, you haven't attained the qualification, because that qualification also includes to recognize your guru when he or she shows up.
That's right.
And if you don't have that ability, that means you have not reached that stage.
That's right. And the beauty of our Sanatan Dharma culture is that as much as a guru selects you, you also equally select him or her.
Very true. Very true. So one should know how to discard the guru if the guru is not on the right track, or was on the right track, but now no longer on the right track.
That's right. That's right. And so, and also all gurus are a transparent via medium. They are not, they're representing a bigger picture of Bhagavan, Brahma, and Paramatma.
Absolutely.
So it's not that you are worshipping, but at the same time, Krishna tells Uddhava, Bhaktya, he says, Mad Bhaktya, worship my Bhakta. He says that also. So that respect has to be there, not whimsically rejecting and throwing it away. And thank you so much, Nilesh ji. Very usual, as usual, very knowledgeable. And please do comment on the videos, and also take all the information in a context of today's discussion. Do not try to triangulate on multiple shows, because multiple shows are different information.
Correct. Because it will be confusing. Naiko Maniryasya Cha Pramana. The information given is every person in a context. But if you don't take in the context, you can confuse yourself thinking, but somebody sells something else, or I read something else. No, you have to bring it together and do the triangulation.
Yeah. And if you think that somebody has said something else, then do research on that person, what he says. Do not compare to what I am saying, or Nilesh ji is saying, or anyone else is saying, because that is a confusion you have created in your own mind. And we are just presenting what we understood.
Very true.
Thank you so much. And thank you all the viewers. And do let us know your feedback. Namaste.
Namaskar.